I recently played Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories for the first time. I always heard it was the most polarizing entry in the series, mainly because of its gameplay. I want to get through all the Kingdom Hearts games, so I would have to see for myself how good or bad this game really is. So without further ado, let's start breaking down the combat. In Kingdom Hearts 1, the combat is simple. You press X to attack, cast magic, and circle to dodge enemy strikes. In Rechain of Memories, however, Square Enix made the bold move turning the battle system into a card-based combat game. It's a strange decision, but since I planned to play every Kingdom Hearts title, I decided to give it a shot. At first, the gameplay seems straightforward. Use higher card values than your opponent to deal damage. Low value cards get broken, zeros cancel out any card if timed correctly, and stacking 3 cards lets you perform combo attacks or special abilities called slates. The hardest part to get used to wasn't the mechanics themselves, but it was where I would have to focus my eyes. Because battles happen in real time, you need to watch the action in the center of the screen to dodge an attack, while also constantly glancing at the bottom left corner to manage your deck. And during boss fights, you also have to check the bottom right corner to see what cards the enemy is playing. It's a lot to juggle, especially early on before you build a proper deck. Now I'm going to talk about all the issues I had with this game. One big problem I had with this game was the repetition. The game recycles almost every Disney world from Kingdom Hearts 1 except for Tarzan. The story of the characters losing their memories adds an interesting twist to these worlds, but the overarching story of these worlds is pretty much the same as Kingdom Hearts 1. Another thing that I found repetitive was the amount of enemies you'd have to fight or the amount of rooms there were in a world. Normally when people run into enemies, you go ahead and fight them as you want to level up as well as get comfortable with the combat, but I found myself running away from enemies towards the later end of the game because of the constant repetition of going through waves of enemies where you're just spamming a powerful slate over and over again to the point where the combat is not entertaining at all. A lot of these worlds had a lot more rooms than I think were needed, and because we were going through almost every single world from the previous game, 2/3 of this game felt like filler. It felt like they just needed to do something to hit the 20-hour mark. Now I do believe it is partially my fault making the combat not that interesting, because once I found a deck that worked to defeat a majority of the enemies, I kind of stuck with that deck. But I found myself later in the game experimenting with different deck builds, and that definitely made the combat a lot more enjoyable. I would definitely recommend trying to spice up your deck, or else the combat is gonna be really boring and you're just gonna be spamming triangle for every single fight. I ended up spamming triangle in every single fight even when I did customize my deck, but at least seeing different animations made it look cool. Now I want to talk about the positives of this game. Where the game truly shines is in Castle Oblivion, particularly in the white rooms where the story actually progresses. These areas deliver meaningful cutscenes, boss fights, and important character moments. Later, when you reach Twilight Town, the experience finally feels fresh again. The reason why I enjoyed this game from Twilight Town and forward was because it was all brand new content. Twilight Town was a world that we've never seen before. The world of Twilight Town itself feels smaller compared to the previous worlds, and it had the right amount of rooms to get a good idea of the environment you're in, as well as still tell the story and not feel like filler content just to add time to the game. By this point as well, you've most likely mastered the combat and discovered the powerful slates to exploit, which makes the battles more enjoyable. After Twilight Town was Castle Oblivion, which probably has the most rooms in the game, but because I maxed out the amount of room cards that I had, I often used a lot of the cards that made enemies weaker or myself stronger, as well as the Moogle shops and save points, which made what could have been a big drag and probably my least favorite part of the game a bit more enjoyable. Again, I also just liked it because it was just new content. It wasn't going back to a previous world retelling an old story that we know. So even with it being a bit of a sluggish room grind, At least it felt different. It felt fresh. They also introduce a new ability that uses Donald, Goofy, and an attack card that basically just one-shots all the enemies. So if you get that slate set up, you sweep through all the enemies relatively fast. The last thing that I want to give the game praise for is the final boss as well. So spoilers if you haven't beaten this game yet or want to try this game out. So there's your spoiler warning. The final stage of fighting Marluxia I really enjoyed because he has two very interesting attacks that challenge the game's mechanics, which is where you get trapped and you have a timer over your head, and he shows a list of cards and their number values as always, and you have to select cards that you currently have and try to beat every one of them before that number drops down to 0 and you die. The second attack he had was when you got hit by it, you lose all your cards just fly everywhere and they're scattered, you have to go pick them up, and he's going to be shooting an attack at you in a few seconds after doing that previous attack. Meanwhile, you're panicking, trying to collect all your cards to find a way to counter him before he attacks you. And I thought those were really cool moves that I kind of wish were in more of the boss's gimmicks, because this gimmick was really cool and it added pressure to the situation that we haven't seen before, other than the boss just plays a slate that equals the sum of over 20 plus. So, is Rechain of Memories overhated? I'm not sure. I definitely had moments where I hated the game, especially during its slower sections, also known as like 2/3 of the game. But by the end, particularly with the final boss, I gained a real appreciation for it. I haven't played through all the Kingdom Hearts games yet. Next up I have Kingdom Hearts 2 planned, but I can see why this one ranks lower among most fans. So, to give pros about this game, I really enjoyed its story. It was rewarding once you mastered the combat, and it was fun to experiment with different deck builds, and it had strong late game content. The negatives of this game are it gets really repetitive. The combat itself gets repetitive too because of this. Going to these old worlds of Kingdom Hearts 1, it's boring and sluggish, and unfortunately that's a majority of the game, is this repetition. So overall, I would give this game a 6 out of 10. Would I recommend playing this game? Yes, I would. There are people in my comment section while I was playing this game that would comment things like this is their favorite game in the series outside of 2, or at least along the lines of this is a game they love. I also ran into people commenting that said they could not understand the combat system, which isn't that complicated. I understand the getting overwhelmed by everything that's happening on screen, especially for a few hours, but it's a very simple card game where one card gets played and it's a 6, so I choose to play a 7. My card's higher, I then do an attack. The enemy plays a card that is over 20 plus, I play a 0, because zeros counter everything if played before you get hit. I don't understand how it gets complicated. I would recommend playing this game. It is fun, it can be a drag, but I think people will surprisingly enjoy it more than what they believed before playing the game. At least that's how it was for me. Thank you for all the people who decided to watch this video. Thank you to all the people who were there in my live streams. Either you are a regular or you just came in for advice, then left. Either way, I greatly appreciate all the help and support I got while playing this game, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye!